So in the last few minutes, let me go through the project that I'm frankly most excited about right now, because I think this has the chance of really having an impact on patients directly. It's a project that we did with Vahid Montazar Hoja, who was a former student of mine, now teaching at Boston College, Show, and then Dan Sargent, who was a biostatistician at Mayo Clinic, unfortunately passed away last year. A very, very well-respected biostatistician that was involved in a lot of cancer clinical trials. He was a master at designing clinical trials for many, many different cases. What we decided to do here is to answer the question that I asked all of you when we first talked about type 1 versus type 2 error. We said at that time that we're going to be using a 2.5% type 1 error in order to make sure we don't have too many false positives. And then I asked you, do you think that's reasonable? Across all indications, across all different kinds of diseases, should we always use 2.5%? Because if we change that number, 2.5%, we can also change the possibility of a type 2 error, of missing out on an effective drug. And so you would think that if, God forbid, one of your loved ones has glioblastoma, which is basically terminal right now, there's no treatment for it. You will die with a very high likelihood within the next 2 years if you're diagnosed with it. Don't you think that for those patients, they might be willing to take a bigger than 2.5% chance to try something that could possibly save their lives? Yeah, we all agree. But the question is how? You know, the FDA's point of view is, you know, you can't just let people just do what they want, because you've got to worry about the effects of toxicity and other kinds of adverse reactions. So we published a paper, it actually just came out last week in JAMA Oncology, where we argue that you can use a framework called Bayesian decision analysis to rejigger the type 1 versus type 2 error in order to minimize expected harm across all possible outcomes. So this in particular is going to address a problem that the FDA already acknowledges, which is how to incorporate patient preferences. How do I let you take a higher chance on a drug? I know that you have a preference to do that, but there is no easy way for us to do that. And in the 21st Century Cures Act, the FDA is actually mandated to do that. Section 3002 actually not only requires the FDA to incorporate patient preferences in their decision-making process, they actually have to report to Congress how they are doing that. And so we're proposing that this method might actually do the trick.